On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, what questions are left for the Thunder to answer after winning a title, and what's the biggest storylines around the NBA?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. You everydayers make this show work. On today's show, we're joined by Joe Mussatto of the Oklahoman to discuss the questions the Thunder still need to answer this season and the biggest storylines around the NBA. Joe, we're talking to Sam this week. We're going to be together then. We're going to be together at Media Day and training camp. I think it's safe to say that we're back, Joe.
We're back. This is as back gets. I mean, you mentioned it. Talking to Sam Presti, talking to everybody on the team on Monday. I feel like I've been telling everyone this, but it's crazy that it's already here because it feels like it just ended. And that's kind of what happens when you play until the very last day possible in the NBA season, win a Game 7 in the NBA Finals. Your offseason is going to be pretty short, but I would guess that's a good trade-off for the Thunder.
It's a very good trade-off for the Thunder, very good trade-off for us because, we never get to cover a title team. It's a lot of fun. But what questions are still out there for this Thunder team to answer? You yourself ask a lot of hard-hitting questions after you went after Mike Gundy if he still wants to coach this OSU team. I'm telling you, the performances look like he might not want to coach the OSU team anymore because he has given up, it appears. But what questions are left out there for Oklahoma City?
Well, I would have to defend myself here a little bit. I don't know if I went after Mike Gundy. I think Mike Gundy should step down at the end of the season. I think he should negotiate a buyout. I asked him if he still plans to coach past this year. He said 100%. This is an Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, and that's your Oklahoma State football coverage. Questions still to answer. Rylan, you gave me a very broad you gave me a long leash to answer these questions. They can be small, they can be big. I'm going to start with one that you mentioned yourself, and it's Chet Holmgren, because I think he's the most fascinating player on this Thunder roster this season. Does Chet Holmgren have another step, especially in his offensive game? I hope you can hear my dog barking in the background. I'm sorry about that, Rylan, but I'll let you carry the way with Chet.
Yeah, I love that your dog is as passionate as we are about Chet Holmgren and the questions that he has to answer this season. I've done a show on this before that I think that he has the most pressure on any player this season. And pressure isn't a bad thing, but I think that whenever you look at Chet, Chet Holmgren having the most pressure on him this season isn't a bad thing. I think that for this team to buck the trend of parity, for them to repeat as champions, they need that next step to come from Chet Holmgren. So that is the biggest question. Can that next step happen for him? And then what does that next step look like? I think it's all offensive for Chet Holmgren. I think defensively, I don't want to say he's at his ceiling, but defensively, I mean, he is already a top 3 defender in this league. So he's got it. He's elite. He's awesome on that end of the floor, even after his hip injury. I mean, you do not win that NBA title without Chet Holmgren's defense. So offensively, what can he look like this season? I'm looking at his 3-point shot. I'm looking at kind of what he did in the first 9 games of that season. Before he fractured his hip, he was able to play off the catch very well, get downhill, get to the free throw line. And then off of that came different defensive looks. I mean, you were having to close out hard to Chet Holmgren from 3 because he was shooting 40% from 3. He could get by you that way. He could pull up in the mid-range off of that. He could get passes off and create for others. So it just opened up a lot for him that this Thunder team didn't have down the stretch of that season and in the postseason. And I think that it's partly why the Thunder's half-court offense really struggled at times in the playoffs. So what does that next step look like to you for Chet Holmgren?
I'm really glad you filibustered there, Rylan. My dog is still going crazy and barking. So apologies to your fine listeners. So I'm not in midseason form. I mean, you talked about it a lot. I always think back to those first 10 games pre-injury last year. In my bold predictions before last season, I said the Thunder was going to have 2 All-Stars and that Chet Holmgren was going to be that second All-Star, not Jalen Williams. And heck, I think all 3 of them might have ended up being All-Stars. But Chet was on that pace because of what he was doing, expanding his offensive game, being more comfortable attacking off the dribble. I think that, post injury, he was more resigned to, kind of being a floor spacer, but there's just more juice to his offense. And I think, I think he's one of the most intriguing players, not just on this Thunder team, but in the NBA this season, because we know what he can do defensively. But if he adds that extra punch to this offense, it's like they're entering unfair territory, I think.
I mean, they certainly would be in unfair territory. And I think that you're right. I mean, if you just bottled up those first 10 games for Chet and produced them over the course of an 82-game season, he would have been an all-star. He would have been an all-NBA player. He would have been an all-defensive player. And he would have had a great chance for a defensive player of the year, especially, with what happened to Wembanyama down the stretch of that season. So, that was already the glimpse and the flash that you saw from Chet Holmgren last season. And it was still enough to get him into the top 30 of our top 100 here on the Locked On NBA network. So I just think that when you look at Chet, that is the biggest question mark. Is we've been hearing about his lofty ceiling, and it's for good reason, but he's actually got to go do it now. And if he does it, then the Thunder will be in a great position to repeat as NBA champions. And it kind of segues into one of the biggest questions that I have is just how does this team handle being NBA champions? How does this team handle that short off season? How do they handle the regular season? And now going from being the hunters to the hunted. I mean, you look back at this past Thunder team, and they were legitimately good, 2 years ago when they were the 1 seed. Last year, they went wire to wire as the 1 seed, but yet still, in the 2 games they played against Boston, there was a little bit something different there. Even for this team that was 0-0 and 1 of 82, like they played to a different level of intensity when they played Boston last year. And that's going to happen to them every single night in this NBA. How can they handle that side of things? And then how can they make it through this season and this postseason with that target on their back?
Maybe I'm naive, but that's one of the things that I'm not even worried about. And it speaks to this Thunder team's maturity despite their youth and relative inexperience, is because I think if you had an older team that, gets over the hump, wins a championship, you worry about what does that next season look like? How do you keep up that intensity, that hunger, that desire to repeat? Whereas this Thunder team is still on an upward trajectory. Like, I don't think they're going to, win 68 games again. They very well might. I don't think they're going to have the most dominant defense in NBA history because that's so much an effort thing. But I think they can be even better in the playoffs. I mean, we were, talking after every playoff game where there were some cracks that showed that we didn't really see in the regular season. I think they're going to be better equipped now in their, what would be their 3rd go round in the playoffs under this iteration. So I think they're going to be a better playoff team. And I think because they're so young and because they're still kind of in this prove it stage as, individuals and as a team, that they're going to be hungry to repeat. So this is a weird one for me because I don't feel like there is a chance for a championship hangover.
Yeah, I don't think that they'll have a championship hangover. It's just a kind of a difference in how they respond to that. I think that they'll respond very well. I totally agree. I just want to see how it goes this year with that target on their back and with that parity era. Can the Thunder make that parity era irrelevant, at least for this season? We're going to talk about that coming up. But first, I want to say right now, my good friends over at FanDuel, go check out FanDuel today because the NFL season is here, and FanDuel wants to make sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel. It kind of keeps the game really interesting because you want to make sure that your bets can win. And if you're only into the NBA, don't worry. They already have lines out there for the NBA, including opening night, where the Thunder are 7.5-point favorites over the Houston Rockets on opening night. If you are into the NFL, you can go check out the line of Washington on the road being favored by 2.5 points. Go check that out today at FanDuel. So if you're ready to play, go download the FanDuel app today. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast and on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Joe, we've been hearing about this parity era for good reason. I mean, this is the first time in NBA history that we've seen this kind of turnover with champions. I mean, the past 7 champions haven't gotten out of the second round, much less repeated as champions. But this Thunder team is different. This Thunder team is poised to make that trend irrelevant. Now, we thought the same thing about Boston last year, and we saw how that played out, and they had injuries at the end of that series. But even before Tatum went out, that series was not trending in the right direction for Boston in the second round against New York. However, my question would be, can the Thunder do it? My answer right now, predicting it, would be I think that they have the best shot to change the trend of parity, not only because of their roster retention rate, but also what you said before the break of this team still having an upward trajectory, upward momentum. And then additionally, their style of play is very transferable. It's very transferable year to year. It's very transferable regular season to postseason. And I think that that's going to help them out a lot. It's like the Celtics last year were a fantastic team, so much so that up until they got eliminated, I still believe that a good season for OKC would have been to lose to the Boston in the NBA Finals as this young core tries to find their way. But the one hiccup that you saw was like Mazzulla ball's fun. Launching these threes is fun, but 3-point shots in nature are volatile. And the Thunder's defense and hellacious defense, that's something that they can do regardless of anything happening on the floor, and they can create themselves. And it's not as volatile as what Boston was leaning on. It's not as volatile as what those Nuggets were leaning on, the last 2 champions before OKC. So the sheer repeatability of the team's identity and the team's elite traits, I think, helps them in a big way to take away that parity era in the NBA.
Totally with you, right guy. The defense is the X factor because, I mean, you mentioned the volatility, the variance of 3-point shooting. We saw the Thunder offense get sticky, look clunky in the playoffs, and still they grinded out some of those games because their defense is just so darn good, and they make the opposing offense look even worse than their own offense looks at times. I think another factor with this team that lends itself to positioning themselves to repeat is the depth, and you need that during the regular season. We saw, Isaiah Joe take a step back in the playoffs, but like he's a super valuable guy to have in the regular season. Aaron Wiggins can be your, leading scorer, second leading scorer on a random night in the regular season. It just gives them opportunities to make sure, like last year, Alex Caruso is rested, that both your big guys, Hartenstein and Holmgren, are rested, because this team kind of dealt with a lot of injuries during the regular season. They were all healthy during the playoffs, and you can't guarantee that, but I think depth is really important when doing that. And I think maybe we overrate depth in the playoffs, but we underrate it in the regular season because it's so long that depth is really important.
And I want to hear another big question from Joe. My other big question was what you mentioned with Isaiah Joe there. It's kind of a tied to that. Last season, we saw this half-court offense get really messy, get really bogged down at times in the playoffs. Part of that was due to they were the 13th out of 16 teams in 3-point shooting in the whole postseason. This team is too good to be 13th out of a 16 playoff field in 3-point shooting. Can they improve from 3? And there's reasons for optimism. We mentioned Chet Holmgren earlier. Jalen Williams was a guy that he hit some timely threes, but percentage-wise and over the course of the playoffs, he didn't have the 3-point mark that you would want him to, because he was dealing with the torn ligament in his wrist, and he had to reteach himself how to shoot on the fly a week before the playoffs. So, it's understandable, what happened, but can they overcome that and improve on that and have a better output this postseason? Because if you get their elite level defense and you get better 3-point shooting and they make a step forward in half court offense like we expect, then yeah, this team is going to be able to really dominate in the playoffs.
I've got a couple quick hit questions if I can throw them at you,
Rifle
Rylan.
through them.
I got to be careful with how I phrase some of these. Okay, I'm going to go with this one. I was going to ask you, is Nikola Topic good? But instead, I'm going to ask you, are we still sleeping on AJay Mitchell, especially in comparison to Topic? Because I think those guys are going to jockey for minutes at times. Both are going to play a ton. But what do you expect from AJay Mitchell this season?
I think that the royal we is sleeping on AJay Mitchell. Me personally, I'm not. I have predicted on this show that AJay Mitchell is going to be top 8 in this rotation by the playoffs, and he's going to be that valuable to this team. Because I think that with AJay, you're looking at a guy who can do it on the ball, and so his playmaking and setting up others can help out when that half-court offense is stalling. But most importantly, he's versatile and can do it off the ball as well. His 3-point numbers from catch and shoot are great. His 3-point numbers in general are really good. And I think that his ability to get downhill and get to the free throw line help out this offense a whole lot. Defensively, I think he's worlds better than Topic is right now. And I think that defensively, he's always in the right position. And that sounds that just sounds like a dismissive comment of his defense. But rather, when you're playing with this elite of a team and you're flanked by 4 other great and elite defenders around you, just simply being in the right spot and making an impact is good enough. And I think that with that, his defense is good enough, and his offense, his ability to score at all 3 levels is going to help this team out in a significant way. And the trust factor built up with him and Mark. I mean, he was able to get trust from Mark from training camp, and he was in the rotation from night 1 until he got hurt in January. And like, Mark really likes this guy for good reason. But I think that he's going to skyrocket this season. His stock is going to explode this season in a positive way. So I'm all in on AJay Mitchell, and I think that he will be. I think he'll be more important, frankly, to this team this season than Nikola Topic. And that's not to say that Nikola Topic won't ever surpass AJay Mitchell. I'm not gonna say that. But for this in particular season, I think that AJay Mitchell would be the most important piece when it comes to the ultimate goal of winning another championship.
I was late to the AJay Mitchell realization that he's really good. So, Rylan, you nailed it. As always, your evaluations are spotless. Another one. Back-to-back seasons, Lou Dort has been a 40% three-point shooter. If you average it, I think he's been 39, 41. Is this who he is with the quality of attempts that he gets? Can we just bank on Lou Dort, who used to not be able to shoot, being a 40% three-point shooter?
I'm glad that you mentioned the quality of attempts. I think so. I mean, because one of the biggest things that's helped his efficiency, both at the rim to have a career high mark, which still was not spectacular last year for Lou, but it was still a career high. And then from 3 has been the shot diet, has been the shot quality, and the processing from him of what's a good shot, what's a bad shot. And I think that he just can't help but make these open shots. And then on top of that, he's able to hit some wacky ones too. Like you can envision right now, those shots that go up and almost hit the banner that he hits that you don't think is any way possible to knock down. And then the volume too helps him out a lot, because on top of getting those clean open looks, he's also fearless. He can go 1 for 10 in a game, and then the next night go 7 for 8. And that really helps him out in the grand scheme of things. Whereas some other players who might have lower volume, a 1 for 10 night would brutalize their percentages, and it would just kind of in the end of their percentages being salvageable. But with Lou, I expect him at this point to be a 40-ish% 3-point shooter. And whenever you get to that expectation level, I have to say that it's real.
I got one more for you, Rylan, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
This is fun, just hosting your show, locked on, throwing it to Rye Guy, see what he has to say. Okay, here we go. This one's more future oriented, because we've talked a ton about the Hartenstein decision, Will Sorber show you enough? Obviously, he's hurt now. Is going to miss the whole season. We've talked a lot about the future of the backup center, basically, in Oklahoma City. Are we sure Jalen Williams isn't just good enough to be a backup center? Is he being overlooked in this Hartenstein-Sorber debate?
That's a good question. I
Jay
think
Will.
Yeah, sure, certainly. I mean, J Dub is for sure a capable backup center. Jay Will, I think he's an excellent third string center. And I think he's
So
excellent
that's a
in that
no.
role.
That's a no.
I'm getting there, Joe. I'm getting there, Joe. I think he's an excellent third string center. I think he's the best third string center in the NBA. Let's just say that first. That we did see him as the backup pick for OKC, and we were pulling our hair out trying to get the Thunder a better option. Now, with that being said, he has taken steps forward since that Dallas series, particularly defensively, particularly as an athlete. What if he makes more incremental improvements on the defensive end? So this season, what I want to see from Jay Will, and why I think it's a valuable question that Joe put out here as a great question asker as seen on Monday in Stillwater. I want to see from Jay Will, can he turn into like a top tier in his role, drop coverage big? Where I'm not expecting Jay Will to go switch onto a guard and play out on an island. But this team, let's be honest, like if they're asking Jay Will to do that, something's gone pretty wrong because they not only have elite defenders, but you look at Lou, you look at Kaysen, you look at these perimeter attack guys on guards who are able to fight through screens and fight over screens and stick with their man. They should be able to afford Jay Will the opportunity to just simply drop and play at the rim. And his technique has gotten a whole lot better with his footwork, and his ability to be in the right spots at the rim has gotten a lot better. Not trying to just go for the charge all the time and being out of position, just simply hands up, leap vertically, and try to contest shots at the rim. If he can deter more of those shots in drop coverage, then you can start to have a real conversation about has he taken that step to become a number 2 center in this league because of all that he can do offensively. I really think that his three-point shot is there. I really think that his playmaking is there to replicate some of the playmaking chops that you've seen from iHeart benefit this team. But I want to see the defense and I want to see the three-point shot continue and him just be able to launch them every time they're kicked out to him. And then that forces in turn a defense to react to him. And once he gets defenses reacting to his three-point shot and not just waving him off, then that opens up the floor even more for his passing to shine. So I'm not going to rule it out, but I'm very comfortable saying that he's for sure a great third string center. I'm not comfortable saying yet that he's a good second string center if it came to that this summer. So that's kind of how I would answer that question, Joe, with Jay Will. And we have many more questions coming up about the Thunder and about the rest of the NBA. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Talking with Joe Mussatto of the Oklahoman. And Joe, NBA season is here. We have like 5 teams in training camp already as they get set to play international games for the preseason. The Thunder do not start training camp until next week, but this week we do talk to Sam Presti. Monday there's media day, and then it's training camp preseason. And Joe, I think that this is the best preseason in all of sports because you get to see a little bit more than other sports of the actual guys. And then for this Thunder team in particular, like who are they going to play that you're not interested in? Like somebody has to take those minutes and soak up those minutes in the preseason. And it's going to be a lot of guys who you find fascinating this season. But Joe, what's out there for the rest of the NBA and especially how it relates to Oklahoma City that you're keeping an eye on that you cannot wait to see unfold?
Well, I mean, I'm super intrigued by the West, just the depth of the West because I think it's good. I think we might be overrating though the contenders that could really go at the Thunder. Like I think it's a list of 2 in Denver and Houston just got weakened by the Fred VanVleet injury. So I just think that the Thunder is head and shoulders above the rest of the West. I do think Denver I'd probably put them in a tier of their own ahead of Houston as threats. But like when I look at league-wide stuff, I'm just really curious how, the top of the West shakes out behind the Thunder because if everything breaks right on court wise, maybe the Clippers are there, maybe the Lakers are there. Minnesota, they've made back-to-back West finals and like no one talks about them. But it's just like, I don't I don't know what the pathway is for some of these teams to realistically compete with the Thunder, and that's a credit to how Sam Presti has built this team. It's a complete juggernaut. But yeah, I mean, like I've got team by team questions, but West at large, that's what I'm looking at.
With that being said, because I'm with you that Denver is for sure the number 2 threat, and then you can put Houston at 3, even with the Fred VanVleet injury, which might be an indictment on the rest of the West, considering what Houston's guard room looks like right now without Fred VanVleet. With that being said, would it be fair to categorize you as someone who thinks that if the Thunder lose to anybody not named the Denver Nuggets in the West, that it'd be a disappointing season?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's easy to answer yes now without the context of what's actually going to happen, this season, who might emerge. Obviously, injuries could completely derail that. But looking now, I think that it would be a disappointment for the Thunder to not get back to at least the Western Conference Finals. And unless it's the Nuggets, I think they should be back to the NBA Finals because we saw that series. And I think Denver did get better. I know there's a lot of debate on did they actually get better with the Cam Johnson, Michael Porter Jr. swap? I think they did. I think they got a much more reliable just person in the building as well, and that matters. But yeah, I think this is on a collision course to be Oklahoma City and Denver. I think it's incumbent on Denver to make sure they're on the opposite side of that bracket.
And when I look at this West, I am interested in other teams, but I do think that Denver's the only true threat as of this moment that I could see knocking out Oklahoma City. Like I'm very interested to see how the Lakers defense unfolds throughout this regular season because Marcus Smart can't be your number 1 point of attack defender at this stage of his career. But then you look around the roster, it's like, well, who are they going to deploy on those options in La La Land? So how does their defense develop? Because offensively, I do think that Luka can maximize both Marcus Smart, setting him up for great shot opportunities, and especially DeAndre Ayton. And so I think that those 2 moves can really pay off for them offensively alongside LeBron, alongside Austin Reeves. But defensively, I have some concerns. Now, we saw a 2-week stretch there where JJ Redick, after the deadline, got the Lakers playing excellent defense. But can you sustain that over the course of a season? Can you sustain that over the course of a playoff run? Those are 2 big questions for the Lakers. And then with the Clippers, it comes down to health mainly, which is the case, I feel like, for every Clippers team ever. But also the Bradley Beal swap and bring him in on the buyout. But you've swapped, in the sense, Norman Powell out and Bradley Beal into that Norman Powell role. And Norman Powell should have been an all-star last year. Like if LeBron James just simply quits on the all-star game on a Wednesday instead of a Sunday afternoon, Norman Powell is an all-star. And so it's like he was that good to shoulder the load offensively next to James Harden and allow you to remain in that top half of the playoff bracket, even without Kawhi for the majority of the regular season. Can Bradley Beal repeat that production, especially offensively? And it wasn't like Norman Powell was a turnstile on the defensive end either. So I just wonder what that looks like before I want to crown the Clippers into actual contending status. When does Kyrie come back for the Mavericks? And whenever he does come back, can the Mavericks find enough offense? Because I think that the Mavericks defense will be good enough to be considered, contender if you're only looking at the defensive side of the floor. But offensively, how can they handle their offense when Kyrie gets back? Is AD still there? Where's Cooper Flagg at in his development offensively at the NBA level? And those questions will define if we take Dallas as a serious threat in the West. So there's still ways for other teams to get into that contender status. But right now, it's just OKC and Denver that have earned the right to be called contenders in the sense of winning it all out of the West, at least right now, I think.
Dogs back to barking. I think that was well said. I also think this is the year where the Thunder Spurs rivalry really takes off. They're going to play on Christmas. Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama don't like each other. They don't make any bones about it. So that's I don't know how good the Spurs are going to be, but the Spurs are going to be seen now as is at least a pesky little fun threat to the Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, they try to make bones about it when they try to say the right things, but it's clear with their actions on the floor. Their actions speak louder than their words that these two guys have a healthy rivalry. They want to get the better of one another each and every game. And that's great for the NBA. You want those matchups where you can count on, hey, these two guys are going to be going all out and they're going to be going for blood when they see each other on the court. And to have that on a marquee day where everybody's watching is going to be awesome. I will say schedule makers did a pretty bad job having the Thunder and Spurs play a baseball-style series, the 23rd and the 25th of that Christmas week. But still, it's going to be fun wherever these two teams play. They could play at Eisenhower High School, and it'd be a lot of fun to watch them compete with one another.
Or MacArthur.
Not MacArthur. MacArthur would no longer be fun because then you got to go more on DeGore Boulevard, and then you get to that side of Lawton. That's not a place you want to be, in my opinion. It's too snooty, let's say, at MacArthur. You want to be down home and
I didn't realize there were snooty parts of Lawton.
Yeah, MacArthur's very snooty, which that's a good response. They shouldn't be, but they are. It's Eisenhower. I even respect Lawton High more than I respect MacArthur. And the word I come back to with MacArthur is kind of uppity. They're an uppity school. They think that they're Elgin. They're not Elgin. It's just it's a whole dynamic in the Southwest part of the state that nobody in the world cares about. They care more about our Oklahoma State Cowboys corner than they do about our Lawton corner. But you know what?
I don't know about that.
You get both. And you Oklahoma Staters, just turn the page. Just embrace basketball season. Be all in from Sam Presti Day all the way through the end of the season because there's nothing left for you over there at old OSU. But Joe, this has been a lot of fun. I'm excited to be back together again, like a Buck Owens song on later this week, and then Media Day Monday and training camp throughout the week. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. But Joe, let's have another great season.
Let's do it, man. This was fun, Rylan. Looking forward to talking to you even more often than we do right now because basketball is back.
Basketball's back, and it's better than ever. Until next time, be good and be good to one another.